here from stage. Everyone, you're invited for the last 2 talks. Come in. Okay, we've talked a lot about fear and trust and responsibility. I think it is time for some hope. It's time to give AI hope, and I have one speaker here with me, Florian Dohmann, and he is the founder of Birds on Mars, and this is a kind of AI agency. So please, come on stage and give us some hope. A round of applause.
Thanks. Yeah, so as you said in the previous talks, it was talked a lot about fear, so let's try to give AI some hope. And that's the topic of my talk today. And I can directly start with a welcome to the GenerationAI, which is for me a kind of phrasing the word Gen AI, which currently everyone is talking about, a bit different. So I don't need to tell that to you, that we are living currently in really crazy times where the media and also our work is kind of dominated by ChatGPT and AutoGPT and all these things. And I believe that that time we are currently in is kind of starting point, or maybe we are already fully inside in a new generation. I have the feeling that I am part of a new generation, the generation AI, where also younger people have or experience totally different ways of interacting with systems, for example. So I believe it's a cultural thing where we are currently in the middle of a change. And we create new mental models, for example, of how we behave with machines. So I think that we are really at the beginning of a journey, which is currently also, of course, a kind of a hype where everyone is talking about generative AI. But I believe, as said, it's much, much more. That's why I want to call it Generation AI when we talk about Gen AI. And for me, that journey, this journey of being part of this new generation AI, started 2017 with a project that I kickstarted or co-kickstarted with the painter Roman Lipski. Some of you might have heard about that project. It was the idea of an artificial muse, to see a machine as a source of inspiration, which was at that time a totally new concept. And for me, starting from that time, I learned a lot. And there were many, many different milestones since then that really also helped me to understand what is kind of happening there, because I was part of that, I was working on that. And for example, 2019, when I was on stage with Sundar Pichai, the Alphabet CEO, at the Google office in Berlin, and he presented one of the paintings created by Roman Lipski, Sundar at the next day twittered that it was so he gave a kind of shout out to that idea, because for him it was really like an inspirational thing for him to see AI as an inspiration. That was 2019, and just a few years later, I have the feeling that this whole concept really becomes or is becoming mainstream. So which was just for a few years ago a really like bleeding edge idea of seeing AI as something totally new, as a source of inspiration, is now kind of, yeah, maybe we can say normal. And in times of generative AI, where we see all these examples, it's something where all of us can also work with tools, with AI tools that we also can see as a source of inspiration. And the whole idea behind that, and I think it's still valid, is that we can, in this case of Roman, we had many, many different digital paintings. We used a pre-trained neural network to extract patterns and features, and then we created a kind of new generation of Kaleidoscope. So to bring new perspective to your own individual work, which is on the one side reflection of yourself and on your work, but on the other side also brings in new impulses. And this is for me, as already mentioned, still one very, very valid pattern when we see all these new cases in the field of generative AI to see AI as a kind of kaleidoscope. And one thing that what I learned there, what is still inspiring me, and years ago when Roman said that, AI needs a well-prepared mind, Roman told me. And there were many other interesting things that he, as a painter, someone who is using a generative AI, said. And what I ask myself today is, are we well prepared? Is our mind well prepared for working with all these new generation of tools that also influence us and influence our work? And for me, it's a kind of currently this change of, we are talking about generative AI that helps us, for example, to create art or text or to produce something. And now when it moves to this generation AI as one huge cultural thing that impacts our whole society, it's maybe more about new artists and workers, so it changes us, it changes our minds. So it's a lot about, when I talk about generation AI, about this intersection of artificial intelligence and human intelligence. The crew here who is working here also has the shirts that we at Birds also created a few years ago, this human intelligence inside, HI inside. I think that especially this intersection of humans and machines currently with the new possibilities of generative AI are changing. And for me, that has a lot to do with design. And with design, I do not mean to create fancy images, like often people think design is just interface design. It's the thinking of a designer, so to create something valuable. And for me, what is currently happening, also in the field of Gen AI, is something between the humans and the machines, and it has to do with the design principles. Like we programmed computers, we still program them, but then we started to train them, and now we start to formulate questions. We give goals, for example, to an auto GPT agent, and this whole communication system and also the mental model of communication, in my opinion, is currently changing. And this is a quote that sums it up, I think, very well. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. So every day currently, a new tool pops up, a new Gen AI tool. For me, it's really like, I cannot focus, or it's very difficult to choose what is relevant for me. And but what is for sure clear is that all these tools over the time will become part of the daily routines of the generation AI. And this usage of the tools also changes, of course, in the end, our thinking. And also in the other, so it's a circle. And this thinking also enables us to find ways of creating new tools. And I really don't have an idea which kind of tools and instruments we will create in the next years. One tool is something that we created at Birds on Mars. I just want to show, which we call the AI synthesizer. And the AI synthesizer helps it, in these days you would call it multimodal, but it helps to bridge the barriers of sound and art. You can use the camera and your movements to trigger music, and this music can then be used to generate images or videos. And this is, I think, a very interesting thing now, that tools become multimodal, so that also the disciplines like music and painting start to merge and totally new possibilities occur. One other example, a project that which is part of our ongoing initiatives of showing what else we can do with AI besides classical AI business cases. This is another one which is a kind of exploration or a scientific project also with a painter who painted his whole life, and now we want to use AI to and generative AI for the preservation and revitalization of an artistic life's work. So to collect again data of his paintings and use AI for him to give him a new instrument, being able to create art again, which is especially important because here also the dementia comes in, and normal painting is not possible anymore, but maybe one day he can paint with a violin, for example, and play music with a violin and then start to paint. So what I want to say is that currently all these new tools occur which enable us to mix things where we before, I would say, wouldn't have thought that this might be possible. These were two examples. And one thing that I want to mention today is that, in my opinion, I think that these days we talk far too much about the hammers. Everything is full of new tools, of large language models. We read about that, we hear about that, we discuss about that. But in my opinion, it's very, very important also that we as a scene here, as a German, European, international AI scene, we should much, much more, and also in the business field, I experience that every day in the project world, we should much more talk about the problems, or let's maybe better call it causes. So for me, a very important question is, what do we need to solve in society, in our companies with AI? And for me currently, that is something, it sounds so easy, but for me currently, that is missing very often. So what do we, with all these developments that are going on there, what do we really want to solve for a better future, or for a sustainable future, for a sustainable society where we want to live in? And also, what I find important is that when we talk about generative AI, that we should keep in mind that this is part of an overall system and an overall context. Very often the Gen AI is now, when people talk about that, they see it as something totally different and totally new, and forget that it is one part of applied AI from machine learning, and that all these words that are very important also when we are in the business field, from big data, cloud, platform, BI, analytics, advanced analytics, that everything belongs together. And that also Gen AI, so the generative AI, here not the generation AI, but the Gen AI, is also in the end software, which also I have the feeling is often, although it's so clear for me, very often forgotten. So it has a lot to do with IT. It's about engineering. And also the Gen AI part and the new movements in the field of AI is in the end software development. And AI is also just a piece of the cake. So especially in the corporate field currently, I have the feeling that we sometimes now talk a bit too much about generative AI, because there's also classic AI that remains highly relevant. Just one case of classic AI, how we can still use traditional AI, is a case that we are currently working here with the city of Berlin in the field of sustainable AI. And the goal here is to collect data from the cloud to the root of trees, and then be able to use this data, for example, also to calculate shadows in the city, because the shadow has an influence on the watering need of trees. So in the end, we are using all that data to predict which tree needs water most in the city of Berlin. And there, Gen AI might be someday generative AI might someday has an influence on the interface, and maybe the people who are watering the trees maybe can use also a generative AI as a interface in terms of a new way how to interact with the system. But here in that case, traditional AI really solves the problem. And the whole project started not with a hammer, but with a nail. We have trees that are dying in all the cities, also in Berlin, that are too dry, and you have to start a design process. You have to find out what is the problem, what are the users, what is the value that we can create, and then you find out which kind of algorithm, which kind of tool, which kind of hammer, the blue one, the red one, the big one, the small one, we should use. And my experience is that no AI can be a solution either. So sometimes it's very important when you start as someone who is working in that AI scene and is building machine learning solutions, that it's super important that it's also totally fine not to use AI at all. And I have the feeling that my title on hope and AI does not really fit so well. I decided that months ago, and then I prepared what I want to say today, and then I found out I'm not so much connected to the word of hope, because hope for me is much too passive. I believe that we need visions in these days. We all together, the people who are creating all these systems and are helping organizations to evolve in the field of AI, I believe that we need more positive narratives. In general, in our society currently, it's very often against something, but I really want to think more about where do we want to go. And also for the AI field, I think it would be very, very worthy if we all together think more about where do we want to go to. And I think it also has to do about the will to create and change. And for this, we need the right attitude, a belief system and pioneer spirit, a sincere entrepreneurship. So I have a company with 30 people, and I'm very proud of that, with my co-founder Klaas, who is also here, and a very, very great team. And I believe that entrepreneurship can also be something that is possible without creating a next bubble. And I believe also that in these times where also the connections change and where, as said, the design becomes more and more important in how we connect with machines, but also how we are together, I believe that empathy is something that is super important when we talk about the future of AI. So with that, I believe that we can build sustainable AI products, for example, in companies, organizations, and sustainable structures around for tomorrow where we all want to go to. And when we create these products and structures in companies or in any other organization, we have to keep in mind that the fancy AI part is always just one part of applied AI. So it's a lot about data, people and culture, new structures, as already mentioned. So it's kind of 3 building blocks for AI that I think are very important. It's on the one side about experiences, so for example, user experiences. It needs some foundations, technological foundations, but also processes, belief systems, something that is there, and the right framing, and all that together we call intelligence architecture. So to see this whole building of AI more as an architectural task. And especially in times where we start to, for example, use ChatGPT to write code. I think what becomes more and more important is to be able to analyze this code, to work with it, to orchestrate it, to create, for example, a software architecture. And so disciplines like designing, or words like designing, orchestrating, curating, conducting, asking questions become more and more important in these days when we talk about AI. And coming back to the nails, or better to say it's not about the nails, it's also about the walls behind that. Nails would be much too easy. It's much, much bigger, the things we should talk about. It's maybe more walls or rooms and spaces. I think one of the biggest levers for change lies in the economy or in the business area. That's my personal opinion. And let's use the possibilities of AI. If it's classical AI that I showed one example, like prediction models, or GenAI, where we saw during the day a lot of examples, very great examples what you can do with generative AI, or even non-AI, as said, and the power we all together have for a sustainable future. And I hope that we do that collectively. I really appreciate working interdisciplinary. It's also not only for the mathematics, computer science, and Mint people, but for everyone, to work on our social sculpture, which is I think most of you know this word, but I think it fits now in these days again very well, how Joseph Beuys claimed it times ago. Because as he said, we are all artists. Maybe now we are all architects, working with AI and shaping our society of and with AI. And I want to claim something today, what I call regenerative AI, coming from a regenerative society. And I asked ChatGPT, and it answered me, regenerative AI could focus on creating AI solutions that are designed to operate within a circular economy framework where waste is minimized and resources are continuously reused or repurposed. Overall, regenerative AI could be viewed as a holistic approach to developing AI systems that are not only effective, but also sustainable and environmentally responsible. And as said, this is our team, which is always very important to show, because I want to show that it's very colorful and not only the Mint guys. And we need to do it all together, hopefully all together here. And that's it. Thanks. PS, we'll kickstart our regenerative AI lab tomorrow. Who has time and want to drink a beer, just come over and let me know. That's it. Thanks so much.
Wow. Yeah. By accident, I recently also wrote GenerationAI, and I was thinking of like, maybe this could be a thing, and now you dropped this. So is this, like, is everyone here in the room this GenerationAI, or how would you like frame it? Is it a whole generation?
I would say I don't have a definition now.
You can define it now.
Yeah. No, I think it's, for me, it's currently just, as said, a feeling of that something really huge is happening currently, and that there's much more to do with culture, society, and something abstract also, so something that is like a collective thing. And I think it's a personal thing also. I think the discussion will raise now more and more, and I think it's subjective, but
yeah.
I really have the feeling that I'm currently in a time where I would say that, because I'm from the AI scene, my wife maybe sees it differently. She's from the art field, so I don't know if she would say that she's part of the GenerationAI, but maybe. I will ask her after the talk if she would say that she's part of the GenerationAI.
Okay, let's say it's an era or a feeling, kind of, but still to be discussed. So, thank you so much for your talk, and we come now to our last one. So, again, a warm applause. Yeah, who of you sometimes uses Siri? Siri? Yeah. It's based on the explorations of this speaker. Who knows Jürgen Schmidt-Huber? Aha! So many people himself as well. Yeah, he is I would say, to make it short, the coryphée of AI. And he will share his personal thoughts now on AI. So put your hands together. A big applause for you.